Hello and a warm welcome to everyone to the 8th South Asian Media and Cultural Studies Conference. My name is Vaibhav Diwanji and I am an assistant professor at the University of Kansas. I warmly welcome you on behalf of everyone. It's great to see the panelists who are joining us right now. Dr. Shivakumar, hello. Professor Das, it's good to see you again. Dr. Kaushik, it's great to see you. Dr. McDowell, thank you so much for your time. Dr. McDowell is also a co-founder of the South Asian Media and Cultural Studies Conference. And Dr. Tom Taylor will be the moderator for this session. On behalf of the organizing committee, once again, I'd like to welcome you all and hope you enjoy our live sessions as well as the pre-recorded sessions that are available on the conference program. We're humbled to see the continued response and interest in the conference despite the pandemic situation worldwide. We received several abstracts from different parts of South Asia and across the globe, and we'd like to thank everyone for their support. The theme for this year's conference is Imagining Futures. So the roundtables, our roundtables and the keynote are focused on this theme. Our aim is to both reflect on the current state of South Asian media and cultural research, as well as education and practice, and draw future directions in the fields. This event is being live streamed on YouTube. We request our live audience to participate in these panels by posting your questions and comments in the YouTube live chat, and we'll bring them to the discussion here. Also, please subscribe to our YouTube channel for conference-related updates in the future and click on the bell icon for receiving notifications. And don't forget to like this video. So once again, thank you so much, everyone, for coming here and for joining us this morning, this evening, this afternoon, depending upon where you're joining us from. We realize that we have people joining from different parts of the world, today. I'd like to quickly introduce the panelists, starting with Dr. Tom Taylor, who is our moderator. Dr. Tom Taylor, AICP, teaches leadership and intercultural communication, consensus building, and conflict resolution classes at Florida State University and works as a private consultant and trainer. He was previously the associate director of FCRC Consensus Center for 20 years. That program addresses critical problems facing Florida. It promotes and provides mediation, facilitation, and other collaborative services. It's wonderful to have you with us, Dr. Tom Taylor. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much. I'm really honored to be here with these communications experts, academics, and practitioners. You have such an important role in the world and in particular in South Asia. And this is an opportunity today. This roundtable is going to be focused on what's the state of media and communication studies. And tomorrow, the roundtable is going to focus on those imagining the future. How does communications and media make a difference in this world, done as effectively as possible? What kind of research practice is needed? And so I just want to say this conference is organized, hopefully, as a model for good communications. There's lots of information out there. How do we make sense of that? Where's the wisdom, the nuggets of truth? And so what we've done, and hopefully many of you have seen the pre-recorded sessions. We had some of the speakers a little bit earlier here. They're really yearning to hear from you. What questions do you have as you view those panels? What comments do you have to add to what they said? And then a dialogue going on. And so this is not a 1 minute or a one-time conference. This is on YouTube. And so we hope that you'll share these things and bring them to your students, bring them to your colleagues, and continue those discussions on each of the excellent presentations. We've had some reviewers who did summary statements. And then Steve McDowell shortened it to even shorter ones that we'll have a chance to look at today and our panelists will be responding to. I really am going to ask the panelists to kind of share their perspectives on the state of South Asian media and communication studies. And then you'll have a chance to rate the acceptability of these statements. Do you agree or not agree? And add some questions and statements. And again, this can continue on after, this hour. And hopefully it's going to be a rich discussion that really brings the field forward. So we'll then give the closing will be the panelists will have a chance to take what they've heard from you all and have a concluding comment. So that's our process here. So what I'd like to do now is to go ahead and invite our panelists to share their perspective and use the chat as you're listening to them. If you got a question, put it in there. If you're listening to them, you've got, I don't agree, this, you got to think about this. Add this in. Let's let that chat become a really rich place for interaction that we can have virtually in a way that we couldn't in person. And so it isn't just talking heads here. So I'm not sure who wants to go first here, but did you have an order that you preferred?
Thank you, Tom, for the overview. I'd like to first introduce the panelists, and then we can invite them for their reflections, starting with Dr. Shivakumar. Dr. Shivakumar, as she describes herself, wears many hats: filmmaker, film curator, film professor, gender activist, and a columnist in PhD with a PhD in film studies. Dr. Shivakumar was a visiting professor of film at Kenyon College, Ohio from 2015 to 2017, and has taught media, communication, journalism, and film at prestigious institutions such as University of Madras, Loyola College, and L.V. Prasad Film and TV Academy for over 3 decades. She's currently a Fulbright Nehru Research Scholar at Kenyon College and an adjunct faculty at Asian College of Journalism. Gender, development, and oral histories form the crux of her work. It's an honor to have you with us, Dr. Shivakumar, today. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Vaibhav. And since you've already mentioned many times, my area of interest, whether it's research or teaching or in my films, it's about gender, it's about identities. And so one of the things that really has been part of the thought processes for many of us in India and South Asia is the fact that a lot of filmmaking tends to be from a very, very Western gaze. Even film studies, research in film, though there is a lot of interest in film studies today, and there's tons of researchers saying, I want to study this on cinema, I want to study that on Indian cinema. And we do know we have a very rich and diverse filmmaking tradition in India, which is over 100 years old. And yet there's a sense of always working with Western film theories and Western film studies approaches in studying Indian cinema or South Asian cinema and trying to locate that within a global kind of context. And so some of the things that I do believe are crucial for the next few years would be to go with certain trajectories that are already quite prominent in the Western world, but not so much in South Asia and India. So things like decolonizing the gaze, which very often decolonizing even our lenses of studying media and cultural aspects of Indian cinema, we rarely do the decolonizing. And we kind of tend to judge even our films based on what we in the West, what is called in the West as the weird lens, right? The westernized, educated, industrialized, rich and democratic gaze. And so I am trying to find ways to bring in a sort of transnational global gaze, not just in making films, which is obviously one of the core projects for me as a scholar and a researcher, and which is what I'm doing here right now. We're trying to find collaborative filmmaking as the way to go forward. And so we have reverse gazes coming into play with the same footage that people in India and the US. At this point, I'm working with a US filmmaker, film scholar, film teacher, Professor Danto, Anna Danto at Brooklyn College. And the two of us are working with similar footage that each of us has filmed in the other country. So I'm filming in the US, she's filmed in India, and we're trying to bring these together and give each other's perspectives to that. And hopefully, in a way, create a more neutral kind of gaze, a more relevant global gaze. And what I like to call real, in opposition to the weird. And so I'm looking at very realistic, empathetic, authentic, and located gazes. And I think this is the way forward for many film scholars in India and South Asia, that we need to start looking at transnational studies. We need to find ways to decolonize our pedagogy, because in classrooms in India, we are often only using textbooks that are very, very Western located. And I know Dr. Das has also been mentioning some of these missing links in the kind of textbooks that are prescribed, the kind of journalism education, media education that happens in India and South Asia also, that we rarely try to present a South Asian perspective. And filmmakers in South Asia often try to cater to the Western gaze, even though their stories and their subjects are very much located within South Asia, which in a way perpetuates certain stereotypes, regressive or not, whatever the stereotypes. So they perpetuate certain stereotypes, and the stories don't feel very authentic. And it's also pulled out of context and presented in unidimensional ways. And so that is something I'm trying to address. And I think this is what we should be addressing in our pedagogy, in our practice, and also find ways to negotiate with scholars in the West and say, can we now collaborate? Can we find ways to find midpoints of, a kind of confluence of views that can bring a global gaze? Because today we are dealing with a global audience. We are no longer catering to niche audiences. Today, everybody has access to everybody else's media productions and media education. With online teaching becoming so prevalent post-pandemic, I think we should be looking at co-taught courses with faculty from across the world, coordinating and giving a kind of global course to students across the world. I think I will stop there and we'll have conversations.
Thank you so much for your insights on, South Asian film, media, and representation. And that's one of the themes that we had seen in the pre-recorded presentations in our conference. And we'll definitely reflect more on that as we, reflect on the summary statements. But thank you so much for your contributions to, that area of research, Dr. Shivakumar. It's great to have you on panel. Next, Dr. Professor Biswajit Das. Professor Biswajit Das is a professor and founding director of Center for Culture, Media, and Governance. He has over 4 decades of teaching and research experiences in the fields of theory, method, and history of communication in India. Professor Das has been a visiting professor at York University, Kyung-hee University, adjunct professor at Tezpur Professor University, and a fellow at the University of Windsor, MSH, INALCO, Charles Wallace Trust, and the Indian Institute of Advanced Studies. Professor Das's research interests are in intellectual history of communication, media policy and governance, strategic communication, and media pedagogies. Currently, Professor Das is the founding president of All India Communication and Media Association in India. Thanks to them for doing a wonderful pre-recorded panel for us that focused on the current status as well as the future of journalism and education in South Asia. So once again, Professor Das, thank you so much for your time, and we're honored to have you on our panel today.
Thank you. You see, as you know that we have been talking about South Asian media and cultural studies, I would like to sum it by saying that communication studies is a very growing field and embodies many of the institutional professional trappings of an academic discipline in South Asia. Its core and intellectual focus has not yet coalesced and remains radically heterogeneous and largely derivative. Media growth has pushed the need for more specialized, practice-oriented, media-related courses to suit the requirements of the industry. The discipline has thus become a capsule of various mediums of the media, like journalism, cinema, cultural studies, broadcasting, each demanding separate curriculum based on hands-on training and skills specific to the medium. In fact, the fragmentation and expansion take a horizontal rather than a vertical axis. I mean, the growth may be characterized by specialization and proliferation of horizontal subfields, but addressing common issues and concerns related to communication and culture is missing. Media scholars are less familiar and less willing to engage with significant theoretical and methodological developments outside their niche area. I mean, the scholarship in the field lack a methodological rigor and theoretical grounding. I mean, media scholarship in South Asia are rarely cited within and outside the discipline. I mean, there is a what you call a glaring intellectual trade deficit. The state of research within the departments need very urgent attention. I mean, while many of the departments are new, but even among the older ones, the research projects is rather limited and research in thrust areas are missing. I mean, lack of scholarly contribution is also due to lack of research training and ability to undertake empirical research in the field. I mean, most of the institutions have little or no research endeavors that engage the students and require them to do a kind of an in-depth study of issues. Similarly, you can see the lack of scholarly journals and access to recent publications also have affected perpetuating what you call an age-old myths about the discipline. So this is where I would say that how the current state of disciplines, in fact, the post-90s, even the developments post-90s, you find that there is a what you call lack of fit between the expansion of the media courses and the qualitative changes or developments in the discipline itself. So it has not contributed. So this particular associations, its major focus is to bring them all together under one banner and umbrella to sort of engage with the idea of what will be communication, how to understand, can there be an Indian way of engaging with communications? So that is what the major thrust of, okay, I mean, how do we distinguish, how do we say, because in other disciplines, in other social sciences, we talk about Indian economy, Indian history, like that, can we talk about Indian communications? Because rarely we have engaged with intellectuals or even those who may not have directly contributed to communications per se, but they have a lot of things to talk about. Like for instance, in Gandhi. So my latest book is also in Gandhian thought and communication. So we are sort of trying to bring in an ideas. Rarely we engage with the intellectuals, even they, how do we understand? In a way, we need to much and more and more we should engage with indigenizing, because that is, it's not about de-westernizing, even indigenizing Indian communication. So that's what the focus. Similarly, I'm sure South Asia and all the South Asian regions are facing the same conditions. Even what is in India also is in Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, also in Pakistan. We have a similar trajectory. So I think that I'm sure that this conference would provide a lot of food for thought, probably for future engagement. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Das. And what a wonderful thought. One of the themes that emerged from pre-recorded presentations, once again, was that it's essential to integrate cultural, historic, and policy questions into journalism education to remain relevant going forward. And that's basically, you know, what you're talking about. Personally, I am committed to, you know, citing as many South Asian scholars in my research as possible. And I'm committed to doing that even in the future. So thank you for sharing your insights with us. I see that Mr. Asif Ali Bhatti has just joined us. So welcome, Mr. Bhatti. In the meantime, I will go ahead and introduce my dear friend, Dr. Kailash Kaushik. Dr. Kailash Kaushik is an assistant professor at Christ Deemed to be University in India. Dr. Kaushik received his PhD in media studies from the School of Communication at the Florida State University. He received his master's in communication and media studies from the London School of Economics and Political Studies, LSE, and another master's from Manipal Academy of Higher Education. His research focuses on political economy of media labor in India, and his researching interests include critical political economy of media, media labor, sports, qualitative methods of communication research, and critical and cultural studies. It's an honor to have you with us once again, Dr. Kaushik. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Vaibhav. First of all, I would have to say the kind of insights which I will be giving are definitely not as experienced as Dr. Shiv Kumar or Professor Das. I've been teaching in South Asian spaces for only about 3 or maybe 4 years, of which 3 have been online. But my insights also come from, because I finished my PhD in the US, I've been in London, studying communication. And when I came to India, I did see a drastic shift in the kind of media research which was done. I am very much interested in media labor. I study media labor, and my dissertation, which was on the working conditions of newspaper journalists from a very labor perspective, is under publication with Leftward Books. So that's coming up. But as I started to look for more projects, I did feel there was a very narrow approach to research, which I felt was happening. An over-dependence, and Dr. Shiv Kumar and Professor Das might agree, an over-dependence on surveys, an over-dependence on single text analysis is what is everywhere. And I was reading, I think, Nicholas Garnham's 1990 paper, and where he says that it's almost become like a bacteria, and he was referring to 1990. And sorry, Dr. Shiv Kumar, I know you also do indulge in a bit of text analysis, but I'm pretty sure you do agree that a lot of it is this very superficial kind of one-time survey, one-time analysis of a single movie, and I rarely see engagement extended. In one of the projects which I'm trying to do, again, which is labor, and which I'm trying to look at a recent labor incident in an iPhone factory pretty close to Bangalore. What initially started as my interest as how the labor dispute was reported in local media, then I realized that would fall into this very narrow space if I just did the analysis of the reporting. When I did go and check it slightly with a broader lens, I did see that there is so many complexities there, which I would like to address also once Tom brings up the statement. But I also saw that even within methodologies, even within qualitative methodologies, which I do try to push, there is a very heavy reluctance to get into slightly longer term research. Media ethnographies, or doing interviews and focus groups in slightly long terms, and I feel that is missing a lot. I do have to give a shout out to people like Sahana Udupa and all, who have actually done really good ethnographic work and brought out stuff, but I do see that as a missing piece, and a general enthusiasm to try out new qualitative or different research methodologies. Even something like action research, which I think Rohini Hensman had wrote about in her study of labor in South Asia, I think should be brought into communication studies. And I would want to stress upon action research, because I feel, especially coming from a critical political economy background, I feel that kind of push is what India requires, even for policy suggestions. And more importantly, we really, really badly need research on brainstorming alternative models of media, which I think as a whole space, South Asia has given up on. And one of my things is to bring it back, especially with, in Europe, Christian Fuchs bringing up public service debates and all of that. I think we really need to bring it up. And I would take Dr. Shiv Kumar's point that we need to view public service broadcasting from an Indian perspective of the kind of complexity that is there, and not depend upon the Western idea of a very smooth kind of, public service media or internet, which can be brought out. And I think those discussions of how to bring in a public service media / internet to India within its vibrant diversity, language, caste, class, complexity is something which I'm also willing to see. So yeah, that's my short intro. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kaushik. What a wonderful thought.
Absolutely.
You're doing an excellent work at the ground level, which is really required. So thank you so much for your research and for your contribution to the field. We really appreciate you, and we really appreciate your work. Talking about research on political economy, we have someone who actually practices political economy, an actual journalist who is who's so famous for his work in Pakistan. So please allow me to introduce Mr. Asif Ali Bhatti, who has just joined us. Is a renowned journalist, columnist, unionist, as he calls himself, human rights activist, and a teacher from Pakistan. He's worked with one of the top-ranking media outlets, Jung Group of newspapers in Pakistan since 1996. He's been associated with Geo News Television for 20 years now. He has been a visiting associate professor at several public sector universities, including National Universities of Modern Languages, NUML, International Islamic University, National Foundation University, and Arid Agricultural University. It's an honor to have you with us today, Mr. Bhatti. The stage is yours. Thank you. Sir, you are on mute.
Thank you very much, these conference attendees, and this is really a great honor and a privilege to be with you people. And this is a great opportunity for all South Asian countries that this huge forum is providing a space and a place to address the issues and also give suggestions, good suggestions. I'm really humble and thankful, especially to Professor McDowell. Yes, I'm a ground soldier, and I worked from start from scratch. You may say that I started soon after completion of my early studies, and worked starting from very beginning. I worked in newsroom and then at the different spheres in different fields, but accomplishing all these goals, I really would like to share here that the Pakistani media currently facing a very tough time. It's not an easy job in Pakistan to do journalism, especially we faced three dictatorships, you may call it the martial laws, and after then there is a authoritarian rule of democracy, so-called democracy in Pakistan. And even currently, there is a regime which is called a democratic regime, but if we see on the surface what's going on, it's really, really horrible. Many journalists being shot, kidnapped, and they are being assassinated, and harassed, bullying, social media, even their cells, media cells, and there are so many other issues we are facing. But still, there is a room that we people are still struggling, because democracy is incomplete without independent media. And as I'm the part of an electronic media in Pakistan, I'm also writing for the newspaper. I do believe that whatever we are experiencing in the field, especially the establishment, all the Mullah military alliance, are to some extent the democratic parties. They're so influential. And in my thought, I used to provoke my colleagues that they should come up with their ideas, because we cannot fight. We are not fighters. We are the people. Those can fight through writings. We are the people those are holding pens. And this is our only way. And we are doing that. And along with that, I'm teaching in different universities. And right now, almost in electronic media, almost 50% are my students. And I feel proud in this regard that I gave them food for thought, that how they can maintain their impartiality, independence, and how they can defend themselves through their writings, through their productions. And along with that, especially on this forum, there are so many suggestions I have today. And with the passage of time, whenever you will provide me an opportunity, I will share with you. But these are some bottom lines which I shared with you people.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And what a noble cause of bringing the industry to the classroom so that the young minds in journalism and media know what's exactly happening out there. And, they get to test the waters before they enter, the industry. So that's really wonderful. Thank you so much, Mr. Bhatti. I'd like to now introduce our final panelist, Dr. Stephen McDowell. Dr. Stephen McDowell serves as Assistant Provost for International Initiatives at the Florida State University in Tallahassee, Florida, and as an interim dean in the College of Communication and Information in 2021 and 2022. He's John H. Phipps Professor in the School of Communication at the Florida State University and was Director of the School of Communication at FSU from 2002 to 2013. His research and teaching interests address news content, news communication technologies, and communication policies in South Asia and North America. He has co-edited with Dr. Sahana Udupa that Dr. Kaushik just mentioned a while ago, Media as Politics in South Asia. He has co-authored with Philip Steinberg and Tammy Tamselo, Managing the Infosphere, Governance, Technology, and Cultural Practice in Motion, and written a book on India's communication policies, globalization, liberalization, and policy change, a political economy of India's communication sector. Dr. McDowell has held fellowships in the Canadian Federal Department of Communication in Canada, with Shastri Indo-Canadian Institute in New Delhi, India, and congressional fellowship supported by the American Political Science Association in Washington, D.C. He served as chair of the Communication Law and Policy Division of the International Communication Association from 2008 and 2010. And he's the co-founder, as I mentioned before, of the South Asian Media and Cultural Studies Conference. To cut the story short, he is the common link between all of us right now. So we're honored to have you with us, Dr. McDowell, and the stage is all yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vibho, and everyone for joining us. I just wanted, as an opening comment, to point out a theme that appeared in a number of the papers this year. I was looking at the papers trying to, work at summaries. And one of the themes that came out is kind of the promise of new media and alternative media to provide access for voices of marginalized people. And that was one of the statements that we're kind of thinking about responding to, do new forms of media provide ways for these groups to kind of engage in and participate in democratic politics? There's also recognition that some of these new forms of media have also kind of led to misinformation and more nationalism and more jeopardy to kind of regional politics and politics within countries too. So that, to me, was one of the key themes that came out of the papers that we received, some of the papers this year, and I think one of the big challenges for understanding what's going on in South Asia right now. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. McDowell. With that, Tom, with your permission, I'd like to bring in on screen the summary statements from the pre-recorded panels that we have received from the conference presenters, and we can have reflections from the panelists on that.
Yes, and if you could take and copy the Google Doc, I've been making changes that include the comments of the panelists.
Absolutely, thank you. So allow me to share my screen so that everyone can see the statements that we are referring to. Okay, is everyone able to see my screen? Okay, yeah. So these are the panel summary statements that the conference organizing committee has created by reviewing all the pre-recorded presentations, including the presentations of some of the panelists on this panel. And so, this, as you can see, is reflecting what we've been discussing on this panel so far. So again, I invite the panelists to provide their reflections, one by one on any of the statements here that relates to their area of work and research. Thank you.
So I encourage you to change the size of that screen so that you can get all of there's some more below, but if you narrow the width of it, I think maybe it will be larger and they can see all of the comments.
Absolutely. Is this better to get started with?
I think what you had earlier was more readable. This is
Okay.
a lot smaller.
Okay,
Yeah,
let me bring that back. And
Yeah,
I'll
this is
scroll
fine.
down, Tom, I'll
Yeah.
scroll down the screen so that everyone can see the, the newer revisions, but we
Right.
can get started with the initial summary statements right here.
Okay, so what we're asking folks to do is to read statement A, and in your, they're set up as a poll on the live screen, and rate the acceptability of these. Give it a 1 if you think it's a great statement, it's very accurate. 2, if it doesn't quite do it, but you can live with it. It's, a good statement, but you have some concerns. If you disagree with the statement, give it a 3. And what we have here is an audience of the leaders in the field. And I think in most cases, we'll have a validation of that. But the fact that you do validate it or have some questions about it helps us understand, to the degree which people find these statements important and acceptable. So if you do that for A and then B and C, and as you make a statement, what is it you agree with? If you have concerns, put that into the chat. If you have questions about what these mean or suggestions of other things, please use the live stream chat to put your comments in. And what we'll be doing is having a little discussion of our panelists while you're doing that. And then we will be bringing forward probably not every question that's there, but at least a number of them. And so I hope you will be, again, putting your questions or comments in the chat so that we can bring those to the panelists to react to that. So now what I'd like to do is just take a few minutes, not so much reacting to these, but reacting to each other's presentations. Do you have questions of each other or comments to reinforce or provide a different perspective? This is a time for panel kind of discussion.
I would like to ask Mr. Asif Ali Bhatti.
Yeah.
So how do you counter when there are threats or, you were talking about social media handles of the repressive forces that try to silence voices in a democracy. So what are some of the strategies that you are using to counter that?
Thank you very much, ma'am. Ms. Mughal, we usually face these kind of threats and these kind of suppressions from the unknown people. And to be very honest, those unknown are very known. And this is not a new thing, actually. It's been long time that this Pakistani media has faced a lot of challenges. And people used to say that Mr. Musharraf, who was a dictator, he gave the independence to the electronic media, which is not fact, actually. I'm personally witnessed that we actually paved the way and we did struggle for that. And he was actually having his own agenda, and his political elites, those were the part and parcel of his government. They were asking him that we can use this electronic media. We should bring this electronic media other than Pakistan television is the only state media. So we can propagate more better way. We can incentivize to the owners of the electronic so-called, whoever will get that channel license. And it happened. The people, those were selling, pan and the cigarettes, they became the owners of the electronic media. The people, those who are running schools and colleges, they became the owners of the electronic media television channels, and not only one, but also having too many channels. So I am going to the basics. Actually, I just want to let you know that actually what we are facing is that there is mushroom growth in Pakistan and electronic media, field of media, and too many people are right now the part and parcel of the electronic media. But unfortunately, there are professionals, those are still having their voice. They are writing, they are speaking, they are pointing whatever is happening in the country, whatever is happening on the side of the bad governance, corruption, and so many other issues, even the basic human rights. So in this regard, I would like to comment here that whatsoever is the situation, as a unionist, I face myself too many threats, even attack at my residence, attack on myself. But I didn't stop my struggle, because I know that they can kill me only, or they can harm me only, but they cannot kill the whole media. They cannot stop all people. Those are working they are the voice of the voiceless. So my perspective is that right now, many top media officials are out of screen. Myself, I cannot write. My column has been stopped, and it was for the unknown reason. And because I pointed out something about the people, those are playing around. So, however, we are still struggling. There is no other way that we are speaking. We are speaking at different forums, I'm speaking right now. So we are actually waiting, to be honest. We are paving the way. We are just threading things, and we are just trying to communicate common man that it is happening. And that's especially, you cannot stop social media. So that is actually the forum right now for the people, those have their own, they are being stopped, or they're being out from the screen, or they are being stopped to write something. And most recently, we have seen there are so many abductions taken place in the capital of Pakistan, Islamabad. People were being harassed, attacked, and this social media trolling is also one of the part, whether there are female or the male journalists. So there is the only one way that we are struggling. Recently, to be honest, the government also tries to create panels within the unions. They buy those journalists. Those are not journalists even, but the fact remains that the people understand what's going on, and when you speak by heart, people understand you.
Yeah, I know, particularly when it comes to women journalists, the threats are far more dangerous. And, I can imagine how difficult the working conditions must be.
Yeah. And another factor which I just want to mention here, that the media owners are also not taking it seriously. They are also the face of the political elites now. Whatever they are, if a journalist, for example, they are producing any story, he is being barred to, publish that, to on-air that. And the media owners have their own interests, actually, and they are propagating whatever the government wants. So this is another factor. Still, I have reservations that there is no check and balance on these issues by the international community, and I would like that with the heavy heart, I must mention here the young students, those are coming in this field. They have their own voice. They are not being suppressed by anybody. They are not being if we openly say that the young generation is not considering this pressure. They are not being pressurized by any other people. Those are the, I mean, from the government side, either they are the military establishment or the other establishment, civil establishment. So we are still struggling, and the only way is the education. Actually, you have to tell the truth to the people, and also the people those are coming into this field of journalism.
Thank you, Mr. Bhatti. We're seeing agreement, among all the panelists who are providing their reflections through Zoom chat. I'd like to bring that in the discussion because the live audience will not be able to see that. So I invite the other panelists to please provide their reflections on this, as well as, their own thoughts, related to their work. Thank you.
So we've just got a few more minutes, so I would ask each of our panelists to take a few minutes, and you've had a chance to look at these statements. You've heard from your other panelists. How do we sum this up? What's the meaning, the takeaway, the significance for the field of South Asian media and communication studies? And
I'll go first.
Sure.
I think one of the aspects that, I haven't touched upon today, but definitely I think needs attention is the power that we today have with social media and the kind of proliferation into even the rural spaces of South Asia. And I think that's where we really need to start leveraging the kind of ideas we need to begin to circulate about media, about representations, about actually media literacy, so that audiences who are now getting information at the tips of their fingers, literally, can learn to discern, can learn to demystify, can learn to peel off the layers of agenda and, all the other aspects of media that they might not have been aware of till now. So in a way, I think that is something we as communication professors could address and find ways to reach out and, create a media literate consumer of social media, because it is definitely a powerful tool.
Thank you, Dr. Shivkumar. Professor Das, would like to hear from you. Thank you so much. Sir, you're on mute.
I think first thing to begin with this idea of, since my colleague from Pakistan talked about it, I think first of all, there is a larger democratic dividend. I think we need to revisit this whole understanding about media and democracy. I think this requires a serious reflections in South Asia, because there is no single model of democracies. There are democracies within democracy. So that we need to understand. So in that context, we need to talk about what is an Indian model of media and democracy, what is a Pakistan model of in media and democracy. I'm sure that Pakistan has a different form. So when we talk about South Asia, we need to map, let's say, that what is a democratic project and media in different regional contexts. Then probably we would like to see whether you talk about freedom of journalists, or even, recently, if you see Indian laws, which is made that a journalist's accreditation would be, they will discontinue. It is, you can see that what can happen. So my dear friend from Pakistan, we are nowhere less. So I'm saying that we are all everywhere alike. So what I'm trying to say, that we need to address these concerns, and probably we need to revisit this whole relationship. I think too much of obsession with this whole notion of a public sphere approach has undermined, because in a society like India and South Asia, the question is, it is not about a public space or public sphere. There are multiple public spheres. So you can't say using a Habermasian notions. I think we need to revisit and contextualize how we understand in our Indian context when we talk about democracy. Secondly, labor. I think labor has never been a perspective to study media and communications. The whole precarity, vulnerability, what we see today in labor is nothing new. That is across other sectors as well, like when you talk about economy and other sectors. So why media alone? My interest, we have been working in the center talking about media labor, we look at from a journalistic, a hawker who comes and delivers a newspaper right in front of your door, even to an IT sector labor. So we have been doing, we did followed Vincent Mosco. I mean, we have been working together for a long time, trying to look at information labor. And that's where I worked earlier, call center, labor force, and so on. So even we had organized earlier about beneath IT, what are actually IT sector labor. So what I'm trying to say is that alternative perspectives, when you talk about, I think labor would be one area of entry into media that will give you a perspective even to understand whether you talk about journalism, a journalist is a profession or a vocation. So the whole public, when you talk about public sphere debate, that is where it has been completely undermined, so that associations in India, if you look at the press commission reports, if you see journalists have no voice at all, if you look at the precarity of journalistic ways and so on, if you see, don't talk about some few journalists, you look at the larger journalists in India, if you look at the ways, the kind of, you can see that that is where a missing link. It is the boss of the industry, the newspaper, who dictates the so, who's the member, a part of the press commission, not the journalist. So I'm saying that labor perspective is very important. And unionization was not allowed, because the question is, because how it will affect. So the question is, here is a time we need to revisit and enter and understand about labor perspective that would provide an interesting entry point to media studies. In fact, that is missing in India. I think we need to strongly advocate this whole strand. Now, talking about social media, you see, it is a mixed kind of it is a gift. It is a gift economy, what, Marshall Moss bringing the idea is a gift economy. Even my dear friend Graham Murdoch writes about it. It's a gift economy. Now the question is, now it's again, what I agree with Kaushik, what he was saying, that this gift has created a lot of problems. The question is, state is receding and push the civil society to fight together, whether it is hate speech or anything for that matter. You fight and state recedes as an umpire looking at two parties fighting, two groups fighting. So that is where we need to strengthen, revive public service. And that is where I think is the future. And that is what I wanted to submit. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Das. Dr. Kaushik and then Dr. McDowell for your brief comments. Thank you.
Yes. Asif, I think thank you so much for expressing and telling us what you go through and what you've experienced. And I'll piggyback on what Dr. Shivkumar and Professor Das said. I think this also pushes for at least a South Asian solidarity between journalists, and especially you being part of the union. And like Professor Das said, in India, even the journalist union is broken into 3 or 4 parts. And, I'm trying to, draw a history of unions in journalism too. And that really interests me, that there is a very strong possibility of, if not global solidarity, so regional solidarity, because we are facing similar problems. And that is one place certainly social media might help. But I would go back to, because that is my area of research, and I'd like to thank Professor Das for giving the shout out for media labor research. And I also feel there is, we need to extend this further. And here's where I want to give the example of where I started, that this labor dispute in an iPhone factory, because the laborers weren't paid properly. There was vandalism, and the vandalism was recorded on iPhones and spread across. And the blame came to the laborers themselves. So you have here media production, which is happening through these technology, information and communication technologies, which is, on a global supply chain. And you have laborers here, laborers in Africa, laborers somewhere else. Yeah, but within Bangalore itself, it's very interesting that you have these laborers who are making these phones and also using these phones, and they are creating it. And you also have people who are writing software for the things which are in the phone. So you have people in the back office of Instagram, doing something. And certainly you have the celebration of media technology too within the spaces. So I'm really interested in that complexity, where a journalist of the local media who would have seen a media production, which is a video of the vandalism happening, take that as the base and continue to give information, while the newspaper, which should be reporting about it, is having iPhone ads on the cover, which is very complex, and that's the kind of complexity which labor brings in. And I think within also labor, we also need to look at all kinds of labor. So I looked at content creation, any kind of content creation, and I'm pretty sure Dr. Shivkumar will agree, where every kind of either writing or filmmaking has now become content. Do you provide content? Do you provide? So it's not even a movie or a different art piece. It's content. So it's a very specific commodity that the labor is being produced. So this connection between content labor, the technology labor, and the actual factory labor, that complex connection, especially in an Indian scenario, I think requires focus. And I feel, I'm pretty sure these are the kind, and I think we had people doing labor research from Bangladesh, and that is also a very similar situation. I'm sorry, I do not know much of Pakistan, pardon my ignorance, but with Bangladesh, certainly it is the case. And I think that push is really important. And I also feel this is the last point, that when you start from the labor perspective, you also get varied perspectives of certain things which haven't been seen through it, like even the general being on social media itself as work, especially for journalists. And I'm pretty sure, Asif, you might agree, there's an extended pressure for you to share stories also. Sometimes the company demands it, so you are doing that extra labor. So those are complexities which I think have been missed out, and the spotlight needs to be on them. Thank you, Vaibhav.
Thank you, Dr. Kaushik. We have about a couple of minutes left. Dr. McDowell, if you'd like to give a quick comment. And in the meantime, I'll share a screen of our moderator, summarizing all the statements from the panelists right here. So Dr. McDowell, please go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'd actually like to cede my time to Asif Ali Bhatti, just to say, you've heard some comments about media labor, and to what extent does it connect with your experience as a media worker, and especially in the context of Pakistan?
Yeah, definitely, Dr. McDowell and Dr. I forgot his name. Just Dr. was speaking. So he was, basically the labor laws in Pakistan are not being implemented yet. To be honest, there are labor, even there is no judge in the labor courts are there, but there is no labor judge. So right now, what we are doing is, to be very honest, we are fighting on the four different grounds. One, we are fighting with the owners, media owners. Those are not releasing salaries of the workers, to be very honest. Even if I tell you, you will get wondered that one newspaper, or the top newspaper, is not paying salary from last 12 months to its employees. And even as an activist, as a unionist, I staged a dharna in front of Parliament on the day of 1st of May 1st, and then again on the day of Eid, which is actually the celebration of Muslims, right? So, and we got success in that because the Minister of Information pushed to the owner that they should have to release the salary at least. But still, we are fighting for those all issues. And the second, there is no security for the journalists. There is no voice for the journalists from the owners and the different people. Those are the powerful, are the elites of the society. They also want to suppress all the journalists, that they should not speak about anything, which whatever wrongdoings they are doing from last so many years. So, and the third is that we are also fighting against the advertiser. Just Dr. Sab mentioned in his comment that the iPhone ad is on the front page of the newspaper, while the laborers are not being paid, or they are not being heard. So this is the real time situation in Pakistan, that whenever we talk about some tycoon or the people, those are the powerful elites, they are suppressing their labor, or they are suppressing the common people of Pakistan. When we talk about them, their ad is on the front page. Even there is no headline. Their their housing societies ad is on the front page. And the third level, there is a mafia. Our Prime Minister Imran Khan used to use this word. The mafia is creating trouble for him, but actually there is a mafia who is being supported by the governments, all the governments. I am not talking about this government only. They are just getting favors from the governments, and on the other hand, they are also pressurizing the journalists that they should not comment on their exercises, whatever they have collaboration with the governments, whatever businesses they are doing with the governments. Even the top civil bureaucrats, they are doing their businesses. But if we comment on that, they always seek an opportunity to register a case against any journalist, and they can put behind the bar any journalist of newspaper or the television channel. So as a unionist, I have experienced that we are working on two issues right now. One is that the security, job security, and the salaries of the journalists should be ensured at all levels. And because there is no agreement when you are hiring a staff, there is no agreement with any staffer. There is no commitment by the owner. They can just ask to the security guard that they should not allow anybody who is not wanted for this office. They are not being allowed to enter the office. This is the so-called situation. And on the other hand, I just mentioned about the salaries, and we are also working on this. Just mention here, one of the guests here, that the people, those are being trolled on social media. Yes, the governments are very happy. They are just watching. They are just they are happy about the fighting on social media. There is some hijab issue of the lady journalist. There is an issue of a journalist who is working on some investigative story. They are actually having their own media cells. They are putting a lot of money on them. Yes, we do know that there are different other unions which is created by the establishment, but people are not really happy. Those are the part and parcel of the real journalism, and the journalists feel that the real people, they know the people, those are fighting for their rights. I myself, I'm a teacher, I'm a journalist, but I have seen in my life that the people, those have nothing to do with the journalism, they were doing unionism. But I took a stand on that. I started from last 7 to 10 years that I should actively participate. I should spend my time, and I should devote myself. Even I face so many threats to my family, my kids, myself. But putting myself in a difficult situation, I didn't compromise on that, and I am still struggling for that. And one of my fellow recently being killed in Sakhar because he was raising voice against sitting MNA. My perspective is that this is a very good suggestion that on the South Asian level, that you have taken this initiative. It is very fruitful that we should submit those all suggestions, and we should have to collaborate with all those unions at least, and especially the people those are working on these labor issues. They should come up with their their designs, that how we can support the laborers, especially the people those are working in the field. They are so vulnerable, to be honest. Even if we are going to cover a war zone, recently you have seen the withdrawal of the NATO forces from Afghanistan, because I covered this issue intensively, war on terror and this fight against terrorism. To be honest, there were no gadget. The organizations are not providing adequate security, even no helmet, no safety bulletproof jacket being provided by the organization. So this is the so-called situation. But still, I have a very positive approach that we can pave the way. we can fight back. We can strive for our rights. We can loud our voice. We can speak, and if we will stop speaking, if we will stop writing, if we will stop appearing on this social media and the other media stations, then it will be difficult to get your rights and strengthen the democracy in Pakistan or wherever it is in a situation like as being mentioned by one of the speakers, that in India is happening the same situation the journalists are facing. But I have really great words for those all journalists, especially working in India. To be honest, they are so brave. They are fighting for their rights, and they are the voice of the voiceless. We should appreciate all those people. Those are fighting for the rights of the people, actually.
Those are wonderful words, Mr. Bhatti. On behalf of this panel, I cannot thank you enough for giving voice to the media and journalist fraternity, and more importantly, for your positive approach. So we appreciate your approach, we appreciate you, and we appreciate your contribution. As much as we would love for this conversation to keep going, unfortunately we're running out of time. As you can see that our moderator is summarizing our statements and will make them available through YouTube as well as on the conference website, and we want this to be a continued discussion and a prolonged discussion that we should have and we must have. I'd stop sharing my screen and I'd quickly invite our moderator, Dr. Taylor, to give us a concluding remark, and so that we can, conclude the panel. Thank you so much.
Very quickly, I really am impressed and appreciative for all that each of you have contributed to this discussion, and for those in the audience who have and/or will comment on this panel, but also on all the presentations that have been part of this conference. So, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. I'd like to remind our audience once again that all these panelists, they have also given us their pre-recorded presentations, which gives us more detailed view of their work and their contribution to the field. So I encourage everyone to please visit their videos and do leave them comments and spark an interaction that way as well. Once again, on behalf of the organizing committee of the 8th South Asian Media and Cultural Studies Conference, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for your time today. Your contributions are very important, not just to South Asia, but to the whole world. So thank you so much once again for your time, and hope to see you again soon. We will definitely invite you again in 2023. So, I look forward to speaking with you once again then. Please do continue enjoying our live stream on YouTube with the keynote just following up next. And then we have another roundtable which will focus on imagining futures, which is tomorrow. So please do join us again, and please do give us your comments through YouTube live chat.